Shocking Supreme Court ruling just changed the lives of over 600,000 Americans overnight. A 9-0 unanimous decision has redefined the Second and Fourth Amendments in ways that no one could have predicted, leaving the nation in disbelief and sparking debates across every corner of the country. This ruling does not just tweak minor legal points. It reshapes the very foundation of citizens' rights to bear arms and to protect their privacy from government intrusion. The implications are massive, and the ripple effects will be felt across households, courtrooms, law enforcement agencies, and even industries that rely heavily on data and personal privacy. For millions of Americans, this is not just news. It is a turning point in constitutional history. The Supreme Court's decision was the culmination of months of intense legal scrutiny, public debate, and advocacy campaigns from both sides of the argument. Citizens, gun rights groups, privacy advocates, and even several state governments brought lawsuits challenging how existing regulations were applied under the Second and Fourth Amendments. The plaintiffs argued that certain federal and state laws had gone beyond what the Constitution intended, infringing upon the fundamental rights of law-abiding citizens. Conversely, opponents argued that these protections were necessary for public safety and maintaining law and order. Yet, after careful consideration of voluminous legal briefs, testimonies, and evidence, the court reached a rare and striking 9-0 unanimous verdict. A decision of this magnitude, with complete agreement across the ideological spectrum of the bench, is almost unprecedented and speaks volumes about how seriously the justices viewed the matter. For the Second Amendment, which guarantees the right to bear arms, this ruling has significantly expanded the scope of permissible ownership and clarified ambiguities that had plagued gun owners for decades. Many Americans had long believed that certain regulations, such as mandatory waiting periods, specific firearm restrictions, and extensive background checks, were constitutional and unavoidable. The Supreme Court, however, has indicated that some of these regulations overstep legal boundaries, infringing upon the individual's inherent right to own and carry firearms. While the decision does not remove all restrictions, it does narrow the authority of federal and state governments to impose overly burdensome regulations. Gun owners now have broader legal protections than ever before, empowering millions to exercise their rights more confidently while raising new questions about responsibility, accountability, and the balance between liberty and public safety. The Fourth Amendment changes are equally transformative, if not more far-reaching. This amendment protects citizens from unreasonable searches and seizures, ensuring that private property, communications, and personal information remain shielded from government intrusion. For decades, legal interpretations had allowed law enforcement a degree of flexibility in conducting searches, especially in cases involving digital devices, cloud storage, and surveillance technologies. The Supreme Court has now clarified that some of these practices were overreaching and violated the Constitution. Over 600,000 Americans who were previously subject to specific search procedures now enjoy reinforced legal protections, making unauthorized searches more difficult for authorities and giving citizens stronger grounds to challenge violations. Privacy advocates are celebrating this ruling as a landmark victory for civil liberties, while some law enforcement officials have expressed concern over the new limitations, warning that certain investigative tools may be harder to use effectively under the revised framework. The public response to this ruling has been immediate and intense. Social media is flooded with live debates, opinion pieces, and legal analyses from experts, commentators, and ordinary citizens. Gun rights organizations have issued alerts explaining the expanded rights and how citizens can legally exercise them. Privacy advocacy groups have circulated detailed guides explaining how the ruling strengthens protections for homes, personal devices, and communications. Simultaneously, critics of the decision warn that it may introduce new challenges for law enforcement, potentially increase unregulated firearms ownership, and create confusion over the practical application of enhanced privacy protections. These debates are likely to continue for months, shaping both public opinion and future legislative efforts. Beyond the immediate legal implications, the ruling has economic and social consequences. The firearms industry, which has long been constrained by federal and state regulations, may see increased demand and activity as a result of the expanded rights. Conversely, companies and organizations that handle sensitive data, ranging from tech firms to financial institutions, will need to revise compliance protocols to ensure they respect citizens' newly reinforced privacy rights. The changes in legal interpretation could also affect real estate, home security, and digital technology markets as Americans seek to adjust their personal protections in light of the Supreme Court's ruling. The interconnectedness of these amendments means that virtually every sector that touches citizens' safety, security, or privacy could feel the impact. One of the most remarkable aspects of this decision is the unanimity of the justices. Historically, rulings on contentious constitutional issues, especially those involving the Second and Fourth Amendments, have divided the court along ideological lines. A unanimous 9-0 verdict signals an extraordinary level of agreement and emphasizes the weight of the matter at hand. Legal experts have noted that the court's clarity in this ruling may set a precedent for future cases, not just in firearm regulations and privacy protections, but in other constitutional interpretations where fundamental rights intersect with public policy. The court's strong stance sends a clear message. When constitutional rights are at stake, the justices are willing to act decisively, regardless of political pressures or public opinion. The implications for everyday Americans cannot be overstated. For gun owners, this ruling provides clarity and reassurance that they can legally exercise their rights within the newly defined boundaries. It also places a renewed responsibility on citizens to understand their rights fully, comply with lawful regulations, and avoid actions that could inadvertently violate the Constitution. Homeowners, renters, and digital users now have stronger protections against unauthorized government intrusion, giving them greater control over their private lives and personal information. Lawyers predict that courts across the country will see a surge in cases testing the boundaries of these newly interpreted amendments, further shaping how the ruling is applied in practice. Political reactions are also shaping up to be intense. Lawmakers in several states have indicated plans to review existing firearm and privacy regulations to ensure alignment with the Supreme Court's ruling. Some may attempt to pass legislation that clarifies or restricts rights in ways consistent with the new framework, while others may embrace the ruling as a model for expanding individual freedoms. At the federal level, debates are expected to intensify as policymakers weigh how to balance public safety concerns with constitutional guarantees. This dynamic legal environment underscores the ongoing tension between legislative authority, judicial interpretation, and citizens' fundamental rights. The ruling also raises questions about the future of constitutional interpretation. Legal scholars have long debated how to balance the intent of the Founding Fathers with the needs of a modern society. This 9-0 decision suggests that the Supreme Court is increasingly willing to re-examine historical precedents in light of contemporary realities. It highlights the importance of judicial activism in protecting individual rights and sets the stage for potential challenges to other long-standing interpretations that may no longer align with current societal norms. For citizens, this is a reminder that the Constitution is not static. It evolves through legal interpretation, debate, and judicial review. Public safety and responsibility remain critical in light of the ruling. While the Supreme Court has expanded rights, it has also underscored the importance of exercising those rights responsibly. Gun owners must continue to follow safe handling practices, secure their firearms, and comply with any remaining legal requirements. Privacy protections, while strengthened, require citizens to remain vigilant about their own digital security, use strong passwords, and understand the limits of the law in protecting their personal information. The court's decision empowers citizens, but does not absolve them of responsibility. Indeed, the new freedoms come with heightened expectations for informed and careful use. The broader cultural impact is also significant. For decades, Americans have debated the balance between personal liberty and collective security. This ruling pushes the conversation forward by clarifying where the Constitution stands on these fundamental issues. It challenges citizens, advocacy groups, and government authorities to rethink established norms, adapt to new realities, and engage in informed dialogue about the boundaries of freedom and the responsibilities that come with it. Educational campaigns, public forums, and media coverage will all play essential roles in helping Americans navigate this new legal landscape. Experts predict that the ruling will also influence upcoming elections, political campaigns, and public policy debates. Candidates may leverage the decision to support or oppose specific legislation, shaping voter perceptions and priorities. Advocacy groups on both sides will likely use the ruling to galvanize support, raise funds, and drive community engagement. For the average citizen, understanding the implications of this decision is critical not just for legal compliance, but for participating effectively in the democratic process. Awareness of how constitutional rights evolve and impact daily life is essential in an era where legal interpretations can shift dramatically. In addition, this ruling may inspire legal challenges in related areas. For instance, issues surrounding digital privacy, online surveillance, law enforcement protocols, and firearms sales could all be influenced by the court's reasoning. Over time, the decision could lead to new precedents that further expand or refine rights under the Second and Fourth Amendments. Citizens, businesses, and government agencies alike will need to pay close attention to these developments, ensuring that policies and practices comply with the updated legal framework. In conclusion, this 9-0 Supreme Court ruling is not just another legal decision. It is a historic turning point in American constitutional history. By redefining the Second and Fourth Amendments, the court has empowered millions of Americans, strengthened privacy protections, clarified firearm rights, and set a precedent for how fundamental rights may be interpreted in the future. The ruling affects over 600,000 Americans directly and countless more indirectly, influencing everything from public policy and law enforcement practices to digital security and everyday life. Understanding this decision, knowing your rights, and acting responsibly are more important now than ever. This is a moment that will be studied, debated, and felt for generations, and it marks a defining chapter in the ongoing story of American liberty, rights, and the Constitution.